This time we're looking very specifically at the chapters in the 50s of Isaiah. Isaiah 50, Isaiah 52, and of course Isaiah 53. Isaiah 50 is talking about Jesus. It's another messianic prophecy, how he will be mistreated and disregarded. Isaiah 52 talks about Jesus as the suffering servant, which is then expounded on in Isaiah 53. And that's where I want to put the focus for this week's lesson, Isaiah 53, because this has so often been misunderstood, even though it is truly the good news of the gospel. Let's pick it up and start looking at it. Has anyone believed our news? Who has the Lord shown his power to? Like a young shoot, he grew up before him, like a root growing up from dry ground. He had no beauty or glory to make us look at him. Nothing about his appearance attracted us to him. This is about the Messiah. This is about Jesus. He didn't come with a halo over his head as depicted in medieval paintings. He just looked like an ordinary human being. And that is the key to this. He was a son of man, which really, in the context when Jesus used it, simply meant somebody. He was just a somebody, a son of man. Now, of course, overtones from Daniel, which is talking about this son of man who walked with the other three Hebrew worthies in the fiery furnace. But the main thought is that this is just somebody that you wouldn't even recognize as being any different to one of us. And then it says this in verse 3, Isaiah 53. People despised him and rejected him. He was a man who really suffered and who experienced the deepest pain. We treated him like someone you turn away from in disgust. We despised him and had no respect for him. And yet this is God in human form, the creator of the universe, walking among us. John chapter 1. He came and the word is tented with us. He lived with us and he took on the form of our bodies. He was a human being as well as being divine. And then verse 4. However, he was the one who carried our weaknesses. He was loaded down with our pain. But we assumed that he was being hit, beaten, and humiliated by God. Was he? No, we assumed it. You see how we have to be so careful reading this. It wasn't God doing this. It wasn't God hitting him or beating him or humiliating him. He was God and he allowed this to happen to him. That's the significant point about Isaiah 53. And then these words. But he was wounded by whom? Not God, by us, by the devil, by the centurions, by the Jewish people, by us. He was wounded because of our rebellious acts. He was crushed because of our guilt, because he took upon himself the consequences of what we've done. He didn't take sin upon himself. You can't move sin around. What you've done, you've done. But the consequences are demonstrated by Jesus, who says, this is what happens when you go away from God. You have a fatal illness and you're going to die in your sins unless you come to me for healing salvation. He experienced the discipline that brings us peace and his wounds heal us. He's talking in figurative language here. How do wounds heal? Well, because we see that and we respond and understand what God is doing for us. All of us have wandered off just like sheep. Each of us has gone his own way, and the Lord allowed all our guilt to fall on him. He was persecuted and mistreated, but didn't say anything. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. And in the same way that a sheep is about to be sheared, is silent, he didn't say a word, and so on. Verse 10 also can be misunderstood. However, it was the Lord's will for him to be crushed and to suffer. Not that God was inflicting it, but allowing it to happen. You remember Jesus says in the Garden of Gethsemane, Lord, I don't want to have to go through this, but if I do, your will be done. So as you think of Isaiah 53, don't misunderstand it. Don't pick up all the lies of the devil, but see this God who is so wonderfully showing us what he is like, inviting us to take his free, full salvation, to be healed from the damage of sin, and to come home and live with him forever.